down the field. Happy tossing dimes, cup $1 million deal. Fantasy football, better know it's real. Tune into the podcast, tell us how you feel. We be going live, best believe we talk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Football from Up North podcast. I'm your host, Clayton. Riley, what is up, buddy?
What up? Nothing much. Looking forward to the game tonight.
Yeah, we are going to be touching on our Week 11 waivers for the week. A lot of different names out there right now with all the, especially some key injuries this past week with Cooper Kupp, Zach Ertz. I mean, you name it. Who else was there that I'm forgetting about? Jerry Jeudy.
Fournette, possibly.
For everybody. It was a bad week considering there's a ton of buys and injuries. So we are going to touch on our five. We each got our top five guys that we're going to touch on. I got a couple little extras just to throw at you. And outside of that, let's just jump into it, buddy. Who do you got? Who's your first guy? Who's your priority this week?
Surprisingly, probably to some people, he's up there for everyone, but my number one guy this week is going to be Rachaad White. He's made strides every week, getting more and more touches every week. Leonard Fournette, I know they're not saying he's probably not going to miss time because they got a bye next week, but I think you got to jump on this guy right now just because there is troubles with Fournette and that's Bucs offense. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Plus the injury on top of that, I think it's only a matter of time before Rachaad White gets probably 80% of the snaps eventually. So I think you got to jump on this guy now if you're going to try and pick him up.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's only 44% owned, so he is available in a ton of leagues. But actually, this past Sunday, this was the second straight week that White has actually started over Fournette, which I found was weird. So, yeah, I guess Rachaad White's my number one guy as well. He finally broke out with this week, finishing 22 carries, over 100 yards. And even though Fournette was involved, he got the touchdown. He still had another 14 carries. He did leave that game with a hip injury, like you were saying. And yeah, exactly that. They're not going to tell you that Fournette's going to miss any time because of the bye coming up. But I'm also expecting White to see the majority of these touches moving forward. I do feel as though this is kind of the Bucs were already trying to lean toward White. Now this is kind of their way of just saying, yeah, we're doing it. We're going all in with this guy. They draft him for a reason. And you know what? If Fournette does miss a ton of time, White's an every week RB1 for me. I'm blowing all my fab on this guy this week. If he's
exactly, yeah. And the good thing about him too, he's already been more efficient than Fournette. But if for whatever reason they still want to use Fournette, this offense Brady's always been able to sustain more than one running back, anyways. So even if it is a little committee, I think Rachaad White's he's still going to be fantasy relevant with all those dump off catches he gets, anyways.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I'm going to go with my number two guy here. Another running back for the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco. And I guess you could throw Jerick McKinnon in there as well. Simple fact is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, in my opinion, is done. I think you could drop him in most leagues. He didn't even carry the ball yesterday. It is a split backfield still with Pacheco and McKinnon. But Pacheco just still looks like the more explosive back, similar to what he did, all through preseason. They were trying to hype this guy up. And, with Pacheco only 24% owned, McKinnon 16% owned. Pacheco's 16 carries last on Sunday for over 80 yards. Well, like I said, CH and McKinnon combined for 1 carry. So this is Pacheco's backfield. He even fumbled the ball early. It costed him points, but they still went back to him. So obviously Andy Reid loves this kid. And like moving forward, I think Pacheco, you could definitely start him, especially next week against the Chargers defense that's just beaten and battered. So now go to the McKinnon side of the ball. He's worth an ad. Doesn't rush the ball too much, but the Chiefs love to throw the running back the ball. And that's where McKinnon basically is the guy. Caught 6 of 8 passes yesterday for 56 yards. So, I mean, Pacheco, in my opinion, RB2. Rest of the season, McKinnon is more flex appeal and PPR, and you're going to have to probably drop anywhere between 15 and 20% of your fab to grab these guys.
I don't think I don't know. I'm always a little hesitant with Kansas City running backs, but Pacheco is the lead guy in this offense now. McKinnon, on the other hand, he had a bunch of garbage time catches yesterday. I don't think that's going to continue. So maybe if you're in a deeper league, only in a PPR league too. I wouldn't pick this guy up if you're in a standard or even half PPR league. Jerick McKinnon.
Who invited you on this show?
Pacheco, maybe like a bench stash just to see what happens. But again, I'm
Really?
always pretty sketchy with KC running backs.
Okay, so does it change anything with the fact that KC's missing, most likely going to be missing? Juju left this game. Hardman, we're not sure if he's going to be back next week. Does that change your mind with McKinnon a little bit, or are you just punting him totally?
No, I think we're gonna see a lot more. Probably my next guy on this list, might as well jump right into it. Kadarius Toney.
Yeah,
I think that he's one of the most versatile players in the NFL already. That's what he came out of college for. I think Kansas City is going to know how to scheme him, and you're going to see a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of out of the slot passes for Kadarius Toney coming up, especially if Juju does miss time. So I still think this offense is going to run through the pass game through Travis Kelce and Kadarius Toney, even with Juju possibly missing time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I have Toney as my number 4 guy on this list this week. The only concerns I did have was the fact that he only, even with no Hardman, with Juju being knocked out, he did only play 44% of the snaps yesterday. But I would also say that he's still trying to get used to this playbook because Andy Reid's offense is a little bit different than what the Giants were putting out there. But on the plus side, what was impressive about, even though he only played 44% of the snaps, he ran 17 routes and saw a target on 29% of them. So Mahomes loves them. We know Mahomes loves the speedsters, the guys that could get downfield, and Toney can definitely do that. He ended up with almost 60 yards, did score, was targeted 5 times. But also what was cool was the fact that we did see him actually rush the ball twice too for another 33 yards. So
that's what I mean. They're already trying to scheme him like 1 week into his Chiefs debut. So I think that's only going to ramp up from there. And in terms of the snap count, I think that's strictly just because he's still learning the playbook a little bit.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, with Hardman missing time, Juju could be missing time as well. I do think Toney is going to end up being this wide receiver 1 on this high-powered passing attack. So, I mean, the Chargers, like I mentioned when we were talking about Pacheco, Chargers next week. I do like it. I do like him as well, probably as a wide receiver 2. And just like anything, I mean, if Toney is available, he's a little bit more higher owned. He's just over 50% owned, but same thing. I'm going to be aggressive with him with an at least 25% bid for him.
Yeah. So who's your number 2 guy?
Well, 2 is Pacheco. My number 3 guy.
Oh, 3, sorry.
My number 3 guy was Christian Watson. Only 5% owned. We did see his breakout. I mean, we knew he had big playability. That's why Green Bay drafted him when they did. I was waiting to see, issue with Watson is he hasn't been able to stay on the field at all, right? He's been kind of, he'd be on the field, hamstring issue, be on the field, something else pops up. But I was waiting for a chance to watch him pop, and yesterday or Sunday was the day. Rodgers clearly seems to trust him, although I don't think he has a choice. He just has to trust anybody that could catch the ball in that offense. But 4 catches, almost 110 yards, 3 touchdowns on 8 targets, which was a season high for him. We're not going to expect that kind of production every single week, but with Romeo Dubes being out, we're not sure for how long. He's going to miss at least the next few weeks as well. I mean, Rodgers seems to have found a guy that he can trust in big situations, and I think Watson is that guy. And now the Packers play the Titans week 11, and they rank 30th against pass defense. So I do like Watson. I do see him playing a ton of snaps and seeing plenty of targets again next week.
Yeah, I like Christian Watson too. I just think he's a bit more of a boomer bust player. So I think he's going to be a little inconsistent down the stretch. But if Dubes, however you pronounce his name, if he's out, I think absolutely go and pick Christian Watson up. I still think Aaron Rodgers has a little bit more trust in Allen Lazard, but I still think Christian Watson can be that number 2 guy. And with how crappy the Packers have been recently, I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more too.
Well, you just got to go with what's working, right? If Watson's what's working, they're going to keep going back to him until he blows it. So as far as your fab goes, I mean, 15 to 20% would be fine. But I think if you really, want depth and you're looking into, moving forward as well, if you're looking at playoff picture and you're going to need depth, if you got guys that aren't performing very well, this is time right now where you want to get these high upside guys that could be, could perform for you, especially into playoffs. So if that's what you do need, and you need that depth, and you do think that he is the guy, I mean, 30+% at him isn't a bad idea neither.
Yeah. The next guy I have is actually another wide receiver. I actually wanted to pick him up last week, and I had to drop him because of Kyler Murray being out, which I'm pretty mad about. But Darius Slayton, he's actually led the Giants in receiving 3 weeks in a row now. And this guy always seems to just go from irrelevant to fantasy relevant every year. I feel like everyone forgets about him, and then he's fantasy relevant again. So Darius Slayton, I think he's going to continue probably being the number one receiver on this Giants offense. So I think I pick him up again, 15-20% on your fab on this guy.
Yeah, three or four passes, catches last week for almost 100 yards and a score again. Biggest thing for me when I'm looking at waiver wire of guys who I want to go after is going to be these guys that have not necessarily great matchups, but okay matchups. It just happens to be that the Giants are playing Detroit next week. So, I mean, that should be right off the bat. You should know that. I mean, this Giants team is going to ball out. I do like, I do have him. I'll talk about him after, but, Daniel Jones is another guy you could go out and get, against Detroit. Detroit's been, beaten down by teams through the air. They ranked 29th against ranked pass defense. So Slayton definitely is a guy that I would go and a bid on him, get him in my lineup until things change.
Yep. Who's your next guy?
My number 5 guy on the week is another wide receiver. It's full of wide receivers right now. Is Donovan Peoples-Jones for the Browns, 35% rostered.
This guy's still not 50% home?
No, still not. Yeah, I mean, this guy's as consistent as they could get right now. Caught 5 balls for almost 100 yards on 9 targets yesterday. He basically led all Browns in snaps, targets. Currently is on a 4-game streak of at least 70 yards receiving. He's also averaging just under 7 targets a game through the last 6 games. Best part about it all is that's with Jacoby Brissett behind center, who comes back week 13. I mean, not that anybody should be proud of it, but Deshaun Watson's back. I think Peoples-Jones could make a huge. I think he's going to be even bigger impact, especially week 13 and on into fantasy playoffs. I mean, he's an every week wide receiver 3 in PPR, especially even with the Bills in week 11. I'd be putting 15-20% on this guy moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with everything you said on him. My next guy is actually Van Jefferson. This might be surprising for some people, but Cooper Kupp missing a couple of weeks now. I think they're going to have to throw the ball with how crappy they've been too. And I think Van Jefferson's going to be that guy because Allen Robinson and Stafford just do not have that connection that we thought they were going to have this year. I think Van Jefferson, I know he hasn't done much the last couple of weeks coming back from that injury, but I think you're going to see his target share increase. And we've seen it. He was good all last year with
especially playoffs.
Matthew Stafford. Yeah, so I think he has a chance to be their number 1 guy. And when I'm going on waivers, I'm always looking for guys who I could potentially throw into my starting lineup. I don't like having a bunch of bench stashes on my team, like just safe plays. I want those upside guys, and I think Van Jefferson could be that guy.
And I think a lot of people do that when it comes to waivers. A lot of people read things. A lot of people listen to different podcasts and all that stuff like that. Yeah, we're giving you our top 5 guys, but you got look deep into those. What's on the wire? What you need? Your roster construction. Playoff weeks, anything. If you need a guy this week, sure, you're going to go with a guy that's performing right now. But there's going to be a lot of times where a lot of guys are going to be left on the waiver wire because they're not, they didn't do anything in week 10. So, I mean, guys that could be way better than any of these guys that anybody's listing. So, but
yeah, I always look at I always like to look at targets too. Mm-hmm. So if you guys have drawn like a lot of guys on a weekly basis can draw like 9 targets. They only get 2 catches that game. No one's even looking their way.
Yeah,
you can get a guy like that throw 2% of your fab on him, and you can get him. And that doesn't hurt because those 9 targets turn to 9 catches. He's a starter on your team, right?
Exactly. And we're talking about him next week.
Yeah.
So, couple other. That was your 5 guys, right? Yeah, I do like I said, I do like that Van Jefferson pickup as well. Just a couple other options real quick for you guys. Paris Campbell is another one, 18% owned. Just a good rapport with Matt Ryan now that Matt Ryan's back behind center. The 3 games that Ryan has started with Paris Campbell in the picture, Campbell's gone 24 for over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns on 31 targets. So good rapport with Ryan. Cole Kmet, obviously much more owned than usual. He's almost 60% owned, 5 touchdowns in 3 games. He's going to continue to see at least 5+ targets a game. So I mentioned him earlier. Daniel Jones playing the Lions next week. They're giving up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Foster Moreau, that's another one with Waller on IR. Moreau should see a ton of playing time, just like he did this week. He has an okay matchup in week 11, but a juicier one next week against the Seahawks, who are the worst defense against tight ends. And my last one for you, most people won't be talking about him, is Gus Edwards because of the bye. Hopefully he's back. Yeah, he did miss the game before with an injury. We are seeing Kenyon Drake perform a little bit more, but I think once Gus Edwards gets back to full health, I think this is his job moving forward. And I think he can be a reliable flex play, maybe, RB2 if you need him at that time. So just a couple other guys to throw
I got a couple guys to touch on too, just real quick. Another guy, I know a lot of people are in tight end trouble right now, including me, especially with Gerald Everett possibly going to miss time. But Juwan Johnson, I think, he seems to do something every week. He's not typically a guy I would target because he doesn't get a ton of targets in that offense, but he seems to score almost every week, so that you can't really ignore that. And the next guy would probably be, a lot of people are going to be curious about this guy. I'm not really into it, but Westbrook-Ikhine from Tennessee. He had a monster week this week, but I don't think that's going to continue, especially with Treylon Burks coming back from an injury. I think that offense is just way too inconsistent to actually rely on a guy in a 12-team league like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And just one other guy real quick is Rondale Moore. I keep forgetting about him. He's only rostered 20% of the leagues, but I mean, 9 catches for 94 yards in his third game of 14+ fantasy points last week. So another guy to look at. Are you
sure Rondale Moore's only target?
Yeah, only 20%.
78% owned in sleeper.
What am I looking at?
I'm just screwing up here. I don't know.
Did I just blow it? No, it says right here. It says.
I'm looking at his name on sleeper right now. He says 78% owned in sleeper.
Maybe it's an error.
There's not a chance he's 23%.
Yeah, I know that's what I was just looking at, but I come across a website that has him rostered at that. So, well, anyways, okay, fine. How much is he rostered?
78%.
Well,
for some reason, Rondale Moore's on your waiver wire. Pick him up.
Go get him. Because he's solid. He's solid. But anyways, what a stupid site this is. I'm not even going to say what site I'm looking at, but I'd be embarrassed if I was them. But anyways, so all right, buddy. Well, that's going to take the show away. So it was pretty good all the way through until I blew it at the very last point, but that's all good. Rondale Moore must add in all leagues moving forward. But all right, outside of that, good luck the rest of the week. Hopefully, if you guys need some Philly guys step up for you tonight, I am hoping in my case that Antonio Gibson is the man and Goddard, Sanders, and Philly D blows it, because then I beat my boy T. Scott in a big matchup. Where I'm out of it. He's in first place. I'm in not even close to the money. I'm going to knock him down a peg, buddy. So, but all right. Okay, Riley, thanks again for joining me, bud. And outside of that, guys, take care. We'll talk to you later this week. Peace.
Peace.